In 5th place, we have a spotting near an abandoned house. Just a few weeks ago, Logan Pierce and some of his friends decided to make the 30-minute drive from their place to the Pine Barrens. Not looking for anything in particular, but in hopes of finding proof of the existence of the Jersey Devil. The drive took them down Bulltown Road near Batso Village, a place rumored to be home to previous sightings. They passed by an old abandoned house and originally thought nothing of it. After a while of not seeing much aside from deer and the occasional owl, the group decided to head back the way they came and call it a night. As they passed by that old house again, they saw what they described as bright green eyes peering out a window and made the quick decision to drive up to the house, but then the eyes disappeared. A strange noise then caught the attention of Logan and his friend who was in the front seat next to him. She was shining her flashlight around and caught sight of something swooping over the car, describing it as darker in color and larger than any bird she knew of. By the time the group could react to it, nothing was around. They all left the car to investigate, but all that could be found were hoof prints in the sandy soil that were too big to be those of a deer and too small to be from a horse. The group eventually left the home that night, but vowed to return again soon to gather more evidence. I wish them luck and safety. In 4th place, we have a spotting from a police officer. Back in February, Officer Brendan Cutler was driving around one evening in Cumberland County and wanted to try and scare his new girlfriend. Real great move, pal. Describing him and his girlfriend as an adventurous couple, they would always joke about trying to find the Jersey Devil, and he decided to drive to the Pine Barrens region. It was around 2 a.m. They were the only car around for miles. No kidding. And the area they found themselves in was mostly full of forestation, with a few houses here and there. Brendan started seeing movement on the right side of the vehicle, partially from the front, right in front of the headlights, but always on the right side. When he first spotted the creature, he thought he was hallucinating from lack of sleep, and I would have thought the same thing. 2 a.m.? As someone who considers a 7 a.m. wake up sleeping in, I'd be yawning at the thought. His girlfriend also spotted the being, and jointly they've described it as 4 to 5 feet tall, covered in brown hair similar to a goat's, and it had black wings that appeared to be leathery or smooth. They were unable to distinguish a head or a face, and when they attempted to drive closer to it, the creature flapped its wings and took off and disappeared. They turned the flashlights on their phones, got out of the car, and tried looking around the forest for it, only to find nothing. Brendan was quoted as saying, "I'm a lawman in South Jersey and have seen some strange and crazy things in my time on the streets, but this is definitely the creepiest." Now, unlike Logan and his friends I mentioned a moment ago, Brendan and his girlfriend have no intention of returning to the area for more. Thank goodness.
Number 3, the 1900 sightings. Although the creature has been being seen for years and years, for whatever reason, there was something in the air in Jersey in January of the 19th century. The creature couldn't go 5 minutes without somebody running into it. In January of 1909 alone, there were nearly 1,000 different reports from eyewitnesses around South Jersey, all reporting on seeing similar legendary creatures harassing the area. There had to have been more than one, right? Maybe like a whole family of Jersey Devils? One report came from a notable Navy commander, one Stephen Decatur, who while testing artillery at Hanover Mills and the Pine Barrens, claims that not only did he see the Jersey Devil, but he declared war on it and opened fire. According to his reports, he had a direct confirmed hit on the Jersey Devil, who apparently could not have cared less about what happened and flew off again into the night, just completely nonplussed by being attacked by a cannonball. I'd like to think I'd be the same way. Through January 16th to the 23rd of 1909, newspapers would publish hundreds of these encounters from all over the state. It was an epidemic, all things considered. Another notable encounter of a battle with the devil was claims that the creature attacked a trolley in Bristol, and police officers tried to fire upon the creature, again to no effect, who did not respond even whatsoever, treating it like it was just little pellets, and then flew off into the night. Now, this wave of sightings would prompt some people to offer a reward. A newspaper printed a $10,000 reward for its capture, meaning there was also a string of hoaxes with people desperate to get that money. One infamous hoax was someone who stitched wings to a kangaroo. Poor thing. There was a race to be the one to capture the Jersey Devil, with many fakes coming out in this period, while everyone had dollar signs in their eyes. Now, as far as I know, no one ever collected that money because no one could prove they ever really found the Jersey Devil. So if you're looking for a quick buck, I think it's still out there, and we've got cameras now, so maybe you can get a good shot of it. Number 2, some sightings. Now, I thought for this list I would also include some personal sightings from more recent history of the Jersey Devil, It's one thing to talk about ones from the 1900s, the 1700s, but I thought we'd bring it to the 20th century a little bit. This comes to us from the website Weird New Jersey, which makes sense, that's what we're talking about, detailing someone's up-closer encounter with it. Take a listen to what Kelly from New Jersey had to say. As a native of Cape May County, I've had the typical rite of passage trip to the Pine Barrens, the home of the devil. I was fortunate enough to go 3 years during my time at my 4-year career at CMCT. Each time I went on this trip, my canoe was followed by a heavy-footed thing. With each step, I would hear branches snap under its feet, and every 10 minutes or so, I would hear a deep, beastly growl that to this day still gives me the creeps. Being in a canoe and on a class trip, it didn't really give me much opportunity to run away screaming in terror, so I just stuck it out when this would happen, and every year it was the same as if I was being followed. During my sophomore year, I was pretty confident about canoeing, so I didn't look over my shoulder much. I went canoeing with a friend of mine when we came across a bag that had been torn open and gone through. Around it were hoof prints, only bigger than a horse or a donkey's. And then I heard it. It was a cry that will haunt my dreams forever. It was part human, part animal, and full of hatred. Pure anger and hatred. I nearly flipped the canoe. We left, leaving whatever it was out in the woods behind, or so I thought, because it seemed to follow us. Every time we stopped or paused, it got closer to the river, so we pushed on. Then worst came to worst. As we tipped the canoe, I heard the thing running behind us, and I thought for sure we were done for. We righted the canoe and got into it as fast as we could. Now we did make it out to safety, sun fried to a crisp, sure, missing all our valuables and our clothes, sure, but we were never happier in our lives to be on the land again. We packed up and we left. And as we were leaving, I rested my head on the window and saw a little cottage. I looked at it until the bus was about to pass, and then I saw a woman standing there. She looked at me, and I could see her skin was torn, and after the bus passed, she was gone. It scared me so bad, I don't think I went into the woods for a whole year. Number 1, another encounter. Our last one is going to come to us from the same source, Weird New Jersey, because where else would I be getting weird stories about New Jersey from? That's the source. The next one comes to us from Mary, and is a certified vintage, coming to us from the 1970s. Pop your ears open and take a listen. This has haunted me since it happened in 1972. I was a senior at what was the Glassboro State College. I had heard about the Jersey Devil when I lived in South Jersey, but being from North Jersey, which is a whole different world, I thought I was far too sophisticated to believe in nonsense. But one winter night, I was driving to Glassboro from Blackwood on Green Tree Road. At the time, the road was flanked by orchards and farms. There were very few houses, and there was hardly any development. I want you to know I was completely in control and awake when I caught a glimpse of something in my rear view mirror. Curious as to what it could have been, I slowed myself down so I could take a little gander. It was dark out, but moonlit enough that I had no trouble at all discerning the upright figure of a creature crossing the road from one side to the other, roughly 25 feet behind the car. This figure stood taller than a man and had thick haunches like a goat, supporting his humanoid torso and huge head. It moved bizarrely and didn't seem at all disturbed by my being there. Now, I didn't stick around long enough to see much more. No, I hit the gas and I flew to the Mansion Park Apartments back in Glassboro. I was so petrified that I slept the rest of the night in my car, unwilling to go outside again, just in case I had another introduction with the Jersey Devil. Never again from that day on have I ridden on Green Tree Road, day or night. And there's not a day I haven't gone thinking of the heebie-jeebies, just thinking about that winter night so long ago. Creepy.
Number 5, David Black. So back in 2015, on his way home from work, David, a resident of the Garden State, said he captured a winged animal on camera while he was driving home. Alright, so the resident of the Little Egg Harbor Township was driving past a golf course on Route 9 in Galloway when he spotted the monster. He told the local news it was around 6 p.m. in the evening, so kinda darkish, when he saw what he believed to be a llama originally running outside. Are those local to Jersey? Let me know. As he got closer, he pulled out his camera and snapped a photo, and then suddenly he said the creature sprouted wings and took flight from the course. Now David said his heart was racing as he witnessed both incredible wonder and deep-seated nightmarish thoughts while capturing the apparent cryptid. did. David insisted the picture he took of the Jersey Devil was not photoshopped or a staged thing. Some folks have said it's fake, but it's not, and he's just looking for an explanation about what he saw. And like honestly, that applies to most people, I find, in the cryptid community. We just want to know the truth. So we took a couple of pictures, but only one of them clearly showed the devil as described in dozens of stories. The picture showed a creature with dark brown fur, wings on its back, and cloven feet. He described it as a large flying mammal about the size of a deer. At least it wasn't a moose. If you look at the photo, you can clearly see the wings on the creature's back and the horns on its head. And once again, the feet are right, and the fur is dark brown, and it's obviously off the ground. And I didn't see any wires or string holding it up like a piñata, so. After his encounter, David said he stared at the photo for about an hour, trying to come up with an explanation for the image he had captured. Now, the myth of the New Jersey Devil dates back to 1735 in American folklore, so it's been around for a minute, it's not a new thing, and this hasn't been debunked yet, so make of that what you will. Number 4, Ellie Martin. So, funny thing about that last sighting, only a few days afterwards, a gal named Emily came forward with her own footage of the creature roaming around the same area. We do have the footage to show you, so you can make your own opinion, and I think it's about 17 seconds long. And while you do, I figured now is as good a time as any to give y'all some context on the history of the devil. Since we don't know a lot about Emily's sighting, why not? So the Jersey Devil is a creature native to the Pine Barrens area of, New Jersey. It is often described as having hooves, a snake's tail, bat-like wings, and a head that looks something like a horse, so that checks the last story. The devil might glow. It can also possibly breathe fire or poison water with its breath, kind of classic dragon characteristics. It's also known as the Leeds Devil, by the way. It doesn't have just one moniker. Local residents trace its origin to a woman named Mother Leeds, the mistress of a British soldier who was suspected of being a witch. And when she gave birth to her 13th spawn, she cursed it, because having 12 wasn't enough. It was then born as a hairy creature and soon took to terrorizing the populace and eating people. The local tribes called the area Papuasing, meaning place of the dragon. Swedish explorers later named it Drake Kill, Drake being a word for dragon, and Kill meaning channel or arm of the sea. A couple of fun facts for you this evening. According to AmericanFolklore.net, Joseph Bonaparte, elder brother of, Napoleon, is also claimed to have witnessed the Jersey Devil while hunting on his Bordentown estate around 1820. The Jersey Devil on its own is a popular creature in New Jersey, with its image on quite a number of products. And yes, this is how the New Jersey Devils, the hockey team, got named, which I didn't know until this year. But it's also quite the popular image outside of the date. It's one of those major American monsters that gets mentioned rather frequently in pop culture, books about the strange, the paranormal, and the unexplained. I think to date 2 fictional movies have been made about the devil, The Last Broadcast and 13th, Little One, Legend of the Jersey Devil, but let me know if there's any more because I would love to watch them. This creature has also appeared numerous times in modern pop culture, including other films, television, literature, music, and video games, like Wolf Amongst Us, where the devil works for the crooked man. The cryptid was also the focus of the X-Files episode, The Jersey Devil. Unlike more common and fantastic descriptions, the Jersey Devil of the episode is instead likened to a feral humanoid or possible subspecies of mankind. While this flies in the face of all the traditional descriptions of the character, the lack of special effects budgeting in the early episodes of the X-Files undoubtedly forced the producers to make a more cost-effective version of the creature. But I love it. In third place, we have a bachelor party gone wrong. David Bennett describes himself as living around 15 to 20 minutes from the infamous Leeds Point birthplace of the Jersey Devil, having grown up going to the Pines often to ride dirt bikes, explore old abandoned houses, and paintball. I've played paintball before, and my only memory from it is getting a really bad wall to my legs, so all the power to you, dude. As a local resident, he described the local Jersey Devil lore with simply that in his life, never taking it for more than a local legend. As a teenager, he had investigated the old Leeds house where the previous 2 spottings took place, saying that it was just a crumbling foundation. Nothing spooky here. Now for his buddy Max's bachelor party, all of their friends agreed that a full weekend ride and camp out would be perfect. And David was thrilled, having just finished restoring a bike that he wanted to test out. And hey, that sounds like a chill party to me. The group drove out to the area and found a clearing that was quite odd, with no plants, and seemed like the perfect area to set up camp for the weekend, without disturbing nature. Now at the time, David was unaware of the concept of the Devil's Tramping Grounds, which are cleared circles in heavily forested areas where demons like to frequent. Just, a piece of useful information for anyone looking to recreate what's about to happen. The party set up and rode all day, partied all night, with nothing strange occurring that first evening. The next morning, the sky was overcast and looked like it was going to stay that way for the day, ruining the guys' plans, but they opted to try and make the most of the trip. They partied the best they could that day, coming and going from their campsite, which was easy to find from the patch of gravel at the entrance to the area. That night, most of the group had passed out around midnight, exhausted from the constant partying. Around 3 a.m., nature calling woke David up, and he stumbled over to the gravel patch to take care of business. As he sobered up, he noticed that the area, known for loud animal noises at night, was eerily silent. He originally assumed he had spooked the wildlife, but started to get the feeling that he was being watched. As he tried to shake off that feeling, he heard a sound he described as hooves clopping on that gravel patch and saw the silhouette of something resembling a deer in the bright moonlight. He soon realized it wasn't an actual deer when the creature shifted its head and the moon revealed a puzzled look on its face, along with glowing, beady red eyes. David's logic was that if he moved slowly enough, maybe the creature wouldn't spot him. So he tried inching back towards the tent and accidentally crushed a beer can with his foot, startling the entity. As it fled, David heard the clapping of hooves and what he described as the sound of a huge bird taking off. He tried looking for footprints in the dark, but a massive downpour of rain started, washing away any possible evidence before he could capture it. Come morning, David was just trying to forget about the entire night. In second place, we have a backyard spotting. Chad Lynch is another fellow who was born and raised in the South Jersey area, currently living roughly 20 minutes away from the old Leeds house in Pine Barrens that, I've mentioned a few times today, which is the birthplace of, the Jersey Devil. Having lived in his home for 29 years, he's described the wooded area as having plenty of creepy things that he has seen and heard, but this time period was the weirdest yet. This past January, he was out shoveling the path in his backyard when he came across hoofprints in the snow, but they didn't resemble regular deer hoofprints. They were spaced as if the creature walked on two legs and had the stride of Andre the Giant. He followed them as far as they led, but they ended suddenly, appearing as if whatever it was had flown off. That night, his Ring doorbell captured footage of a creature he described looking like, you guessed it, the Jersey Devil. When he rushed outdoors, he heard unnatural noises, similar to wild pigs, and assorted screeching. Trying to see into the forest from his deck, he saw red eyes looking back at him, and made the decision to retreat back into his home. Can't say I blame him, it was probably freezing out. Chad has mentioned hearing the same squealing and screeching occasionally at night since, but hasn't tried to hunt for the creature since the incident. Good on ya for having common sense, my dude. And finally, in first place, we have a case of teenage bravery, or stupidity if you ask me. Johnny Ramsey is not the first member of his family to have spotted the Jersey Devil, with his grandma, dad, and boss at work having shared their own tales of spotting with him, so he grew up unafraid to spot the creature. His logic was that since the Jersey Devil was always described as shy, somewhat benign of a creature that was never aggressive, and only ever visible enough for a witness to catch a small glimpse of him, it was probably something to feel sorry for instead of fearing. Sure, yeah, that makes sense. Back in February, he was working on a farm with his brother's girlfriend, Janice, who didn't have a driver's license, and being a very good person, he would drive her back and forth to work every day. Such a good Samaritan. The pair often worked late evening shifts, so poor Johnny would be driving Janice home in pitch black conditions, and her home was very deep in the forest in the middle of nowhere. One night, after dropping her off, Johnny was driving along the gravel road on the last stretch before the main highway when he was overcome with the feeling of something or someone watching him, which led him to pull over and stop his car. He was smart enough to keep his doors locked at first, and he kept a large wrench under his seat for safety that he was confident he could use if need be. He sat there for a while, trying to calm down, and was looking around to see if he could spot what might have been bothering him in the woods or on the road. Leaving the car, he ventured a few steps away, trying once again to see past the large trees in the area, but spotted nothing weird, and so he returned to his car. He started driving slowly down the road and noticed movement from the tops of one of the tallest trees. Stopping the car yet again, he stared in that direction, trying to get his eyes to focus in the dark. Once his eyes had finally adjusted, he described what he saw as something larger than a man, with a huge head, sitting in a half-crouched position as if it was ready to spring from its hind legs at any given moment. It was sadly too dark to make out any other specifics against the dark sky. Deep in his state of concentration at staring at whatever it was in those bushes, Johnny accidentally let his foot slip from the clutch and his car stalled the engine. And this is how we find out he was driving a standard and not an automatic. The creature's head whipped around suddenly at the noise and took off in one swift motion. As it was taking off, Johnny didn't see any wings on its back, but heard a large whooshing noise like large wings would make. In addition to hearing this, Johnny was able to make out some very powerful looking legs that were bent at the knees, kind of like a horse's legs would be. Since the car was now stalled and quiet, he was able to hear a loud screech and a whoosh of air above him that grew fainter within seconds. Whatever this thing was, it was fast and it was powerful. As the creature took off, the bushes on the tree almost bent in half, thrashing and swaying for a long time after it left. Johnny panicked, managed to get the car started, and drove back to Janice's house in a tizzy, not even remembering to close the car's door as he barged into the home and started babbling about what he had seen. And Janice's dad calmly told him that he must have seen the Jersey Devil. He drove back with Johnny to the spot where he'd seen it and confirmed there was definitely a disturbance in the bushes on that side of the road. He told Johnny that he'd had quite a few sightings of the Jersey Devil on his land before, but he had never said anything to his wife or his daughters so they wouldn't get freaked out. Big whoopsie on Johnny's front for that one. And that brings us to the end of today's list and the official addition of Pine Barrens to the Never Travel Here list on my phone. I swear, with the stuff I talk about with you folks out there, that list is growing by the day.
Number 5. It's Unsettling Origins. Unlike most cryptids, whose origins are unknown, you know, they show up and start being scary one day. I couldn't tell you where the Loch Ness Monster came from or where Bigfoot came from. The Jersey Devil actually has a pretty creepy villain backstory. There are a few different popular explanations for where the creature might have come from, but the most widely shared one takes place in Leeds Point. On a dark night in 1735, a Quaker woman gave birth during a thunderstorm. Now, this woman was named Mother Leeds, and she was thought to be a witch by the locals. She was said to have had many offspring, 12 in all, but it was her 13th that was born cursed. Some say that it came out of the womb deformed hideously, while others say that it was born normally, and over time started to take on horrific characteristics that the Jersey Devil would be known for. An elongated body, winged shoulders, a large head like a horse, cloven feet, and a thick tail. The kind of face only a mother could love, really. Now, that's not the only point of origin for the Jersey Devil. A slight variation on a similar tale, also from Leeds Point, tells of a woman who had fallen in love with a British soldier. In 1778, the British and the Americans battled at the Battle of Chestnut Neck. Now, the town rallied against this young woman, calling her love with the British soldier an act of treason against her country. The story goes that a witch in town, maybe the witch from the other story, cursed the young girl for her actions, and when she gave birth, instead of a baby, a devil emerged and flew off into the night to terrorize the locals, to terrorize the area for centuries, and to haunt our nightmares. And if you're looking for more stories of cryptids, conspiracies, mythology, true crime, fake crime, you already know Top 5 Scary has all of that and then some. So click on through, hit that little bell, subscribe, don't miss a single video, and keep screaming. But, you know, please watch this one. You know, watch it all the way to the end, okay? We worked hard on it, kinda. Number 4. All the sightings. Now, since the legend has first propagated around the 1700s, the Jersey Devil has been spotted quite frequently, almost never ending, really, with this guy. Now, it definitely bears worth mentioning that a vast majority of sightings and descriptions of the Jersey Devil come to us from a time before film, when a general lack of education and knowledge and hard evidence really contributed to the creature's lasting power. It was a lot easier for rumors and myths to spread when the only evidence you have is, I saw something weird, dude, just trust me. But there were some notable sightings, even some from some famous people. One particularly notable sighting, and one of the more widespread ones, came from Joseph Bonaparte. And yes, that Bonaparte, he was Napoleon's brother. While hunting on his Borden estate in the early 18th century, he had an encounter with the fabled devil. Bonaparte was hunting alone in the woods near his house when he spotted some bizarre tracks on the ground that he hadn't recognized as an animal he'd ever seen before. They looked like donkey or horse tracks, but confusingly, there was only 2 feet, as if the creature was walking on its hind legs. What confused Bonaparte the most was that these tracks seemed to end abruptly in the middle of the forest, as if the creature had just up and vanished. As he was standing there scratching his head trying to figure out what 2-legged horse he was dealing with, he suddenly found himself face to face with the Jersey Devil itself. He heard a strange hissing noise and investigated, only to be met with a horse-headed creature on its hind legs with giant wings like a bat. He was terrified and drew his weapon against it, but was too frozen in fear to do anything. This creature flew into the night, and Joseph would write of this encounter, contributing to the legacy of the Jersey Devil, the most famous thing any of the Bonapartes ever did. I don't know if his brother ever got up to anything big, really, if he ever made something of himself. No, he did.
Number 3, a case of teenage bravery, or stupidity if you're asking me. Johnny Ramsey is not the first member of his family to have spotted the Jersey Devil, with his grandma, dad, and boss at work having shared their own tales of spotting with him. So he grew up unafraid to, see it around. It's there? Great. Cool. His His logic was that since the Jersey Devil was always described as a shy, somewhat benign creature that was never aggressive, and only visible enough for a witness to catch a small glimpse of him, it was something to feel sorry for instead of fearing, and something he really wanted to get a photo of. So back in February, he was working on a farm with his brother's girlfriend, Janice, who didn't have a driver's license, and being a good person, he would drive her back and forth to work every day. The pair often worked late evening shifts, so poor Johnny would be driving Janice home in like pitch black conditions, and her home was very deep in the forest, like in the middle of nowhere. Well, one night after dropping her off, Johnny was driving along the gravel road on the last stretch before the main highway when he was overcome with a feeling of something, or someone watching him, which led him to pull over and stop his car. He was smart enough to keep his doors locked at first and kept a large wrench under his seat for safety that he was confident he could use if need be. He sat there for a while trying to calm down and was looking around to see if he could spot what might have been bothering him in the woods or on the road. Leaving the car, he ventured a few steps away with his phone camera out, trying once again to see past the large trees in the area, but spotted nothing weird and returned to his car. He started driving slowly down the road and noticed movement from the top of one of the tallest trees. So he stopped the car again, stared in the direction trying to get his eyes to focus, and once his eyes had finally adjusted, he described what he saw as something larger than a man with a huge head, sitting in a half-crouched position as if it was ready to spring from its hind legs at any moment. It was sadly too dark to make out any other specifics against the dark sky, but he was able to snag a picture. Deep in a state of concentration at staring whatever was in the bushes, Johnny accidentally let his foot slip from the clutch and his car stalled the engine. The creature's head whipped around suddenly at the noise and took off in one swift motion. As it was taking off, Johnny didn't see any wings on its back, but heard a loud whooshing noise like large wings would make. In addition to hearing this, Johnny was able to make out some very powerful looking legs that were bent at the knees like a horse's legs would be. Since the car was now stalled and quiet, he was able to hear a large screech and whoosh of air above him that grew fainter within seconds. So whatever this thing was, it was fast and powerful. As the creature took off, the bushes on the tree almost bent in half, thrashing and swaying for a long time after it left. Johnny panicked, managed to get the car started, and drove back to Janice's house in a tizzy, not even remembering to close the car door as he barged into the home and started babbling about what he had seen. And Janice's dad calmly told him that, yeah, he must have seen the Jersey Devil. He drove Johnny back to the spot where he'd seen it and confirmed there was definitely a disturbance in the bushes on that side of the road. He told Johnny that he'd had quite a few sightings of the Jersey Devil on his land before, but had never said anything to his wife or daughter so they wouldn't get freaked out. So big whoopsie on Johnny's front for that one. Now, he did post a picture online, and hopefully we still have it, but you never quite know with supernatural pictures. They tend to go poof sometimes. Number 2, a bachelor party gone wrong. So David Bennett describes himself as living around 15 to 20 minutes from the infamous Leeds Point birthplace of the Jersey Devil, having grown up going to the Pines often to ride, dirt bikes, explore old abandoned houses, and paintball. As a local resident, he described the local Jersey Devil lore that, simply that was in his life, never taking it for more than an urban legend. As a teenager, he had investigated the old Leeds house where the previous sightings took place, saying that it was just crumbling foundation, nothing spooky. For his buddy Max's bachelor party, all of their friends agreed that a full weekend ride and camp out would be perfect, and David was thrilled, having just finished restoring a dirt bike that he wanted to test out. So the group drove out to the area and found a clearing that was quite odd, with no plants, and seemed like the perfect area to set up camp for the weekend without disturbing nature. At the time, David was unaware of the concept of Devil's Tramping Grounds, which are cleared circles in heavily forested areas where demons like to frequent. Just a piece of useful information for anyone looking to recreate what's about to happen. The party set up and rode all day, partied all night, and nothing really strange occurred that first evening. The next morning, the sky was overcast and looked like it was going to stay that way for the day, ruining the guys' plans, but they opted to try and make the most of the trip. They partied the best they could that day, coming and going from their campsite, which was easy to find from the patch of gravel at the entrance to the area, and that night most of the group had passed out around midnight, exhausted from the constant partying. Around 3 a.m., nature calling woke David up, so he grabbed his cell phone and stumbled over to the gravel patch to take care of business. And as he sobered up, he noticed that the area, known for loud animal noises at night, was eerily silent. He originally assumed that he had spooked the wildlife, but he started to get the feeling that he was being watched. As he tried to shake off said feeling, he heard a sound he described as hooves clopping on that gravel patch, and saw the silhouette of something resembling a deer in the bright moonlight. He soon realized it wasn't an actual deer when the creature shifted its head and the moon revealed a puzzled look on its face, along with glowing, beady red eyes. David's logic was that if he moved slowly enough, maybe the creature wouldn't spot him, so he tried inching back towards the tent and accidentally crushed a beer can with his foot, startling the creature. As it fled, David snapped a picture, heard the clapping of the hooves, and what he described as the sound of a huge bird taking off. He tried looking for footprints in the dark, using his phone flashlight, but a massive downpour of rain started, washing away any possible evidence before he could, capture that. He did get one picture of the creature though, so we should have it, and come morning, David was just trying to forget about the entire night. Number 1, a sighting near an abandoned house. So just last year, Logan Pierce and some of his friends decided to make the 30-minute drive from their place to Pine Barrens, not looking for anything in particular, but they wanted to find proof of the existence of the Jersey Devil. The drive took them down Bulltown Road, near Batstow Village, a place rumored to be home to previous sightings, and they passed by an old abandoned house and didn't really think much of it. After a while of not seeing much aside from deer and the occasional owl, the group decided to head back the way they came and call it a night. before batteries died. As they passed by that old house again though, they saw what they described as bright green eyes peering out a window. They took a picture of it and made the quick decision to drive up to the house, but then the eyes disappeared. A strange noise then caught the attention of Logan and his friend, who was in the front seat next to him. She was shining her flashlight around on her phone and caught sight of something swooping over the car, describing it as darker in color and larger than any bird she knew of. By the time the group could react to it though, nothing was around. They all left the car to investigate, but all that could be found were hoof prints in the sandy soil that were too big to be those of a deer and too small to be from a horse. The group eventually left home that night, but vowed to return again soon to gather more evidence, and I wish them luck and safety.